I'm headed for a land that's far away, beside the crystal fountain. So come with me, we'll go and see the big rock candy mountains.
And we are off and running. This is the Great Classic Rock Debate. I'm Kenny.
I'm Paul with 0 qualifications.
And I'm Steve.
And we talk anything and everything classic rock. We try to have fun and keep it interesting. If you're watching right now, please like, comment, and subscribe. We will appreciate that. We especially love the comments, so put some comments down there for us. And don't forget to check out our sister channel, The Great Classic Movie Debate. Still in its infancy, but growing slowly but surely. Guys, tonight, I have to start with a gigantic mea culpa, okay? So I'm owning it. I'm not denying it. I'm not running. I'm owning it, okay? So last week, we did a deep dive into 1970 and talked about what a banner year that was for classic rock. And somewhere towards the end of the show, we mentioned that song, Vehicle by Ides of March, right?
Yeah.
And I had a moment of insanity. And I said, I think those guys were Dutch. Okay. All right. So let me explain. When the show was over, I kept saying, something's wrong. They're not, I don't know why I said that, but I couldn't quite connect the dots. And then I finally thought of it. Okay. Right around the same time as Vehicle by Ides of March, there was a song called Venus by Shocking Blue. And you probably know the Bananarama 80s remake of Venus, okay? You've heard that song a million times. All right. So I guess because they both start with V, I don't know. That's going to be my excuse anyway. I got them confused.
So they're from China. They're from China, right?
Just plot the 2 points on the globe and go halfway, and there you go.
Well,
Shocking Blue is Dutch, okay? But they don't sing Vehicle. They sing Venus. Ides of March, as we alluded to, is from Chicago, and they had that same sort of sound as Blood, Sweat, and Tears and the band Chicago, the jazz rock fusion with horns. And most interestingly, one of their members was a guy named Jim. I don't know how he pronounces his last name. It's either Peterik or Peterik or Peterik, who went on to become a member of Survivor. And he wrote Eye of the Tiger and Burning Heart, which we've talked about in previous episodes. But he was one of the founding members of Ides of March. And sometime in the 90s, they regrouped, the original members, and I think they still play together today. So interesting little anecdote.
Did they kill any Caesars when they regrouped? No.
Steve?
I get it. He's reaching into the Julius Caesar.
We will disown him. We will disown him.
And I do want to say one thing.
Go ahead.
My birthday is the Ides of March as well. So.
Oh, all right. All right.
So I'll have a mea culpa.
Last
week, because I said, when I bought that Led Zeppelin, it had Donna's Summer. It turns out she was not on Swan Song, but she was on Atlantic. And that's why pressing had, maybe I don't know all of Led Zeppelin very well. Maybe Donna Summer sang on a Led Zeppelin song. But so that was my mea culpa.
Okay. She label jumped a little bit in her earlier days. Yeah. And then became a fixture later on Casablanca, but she label jumped a lot in the early days before she was well known. Okay. So there's the mea culpas for this evening. And I guess we can go ahead and go into 1971. Is that okay with you guys?
Can I jump in for 30 seconds?
Take your time.
Saw Duran Duran live at whatever that stupid place is called, Bridgestone Arena. And they were very good. But I wanted to focus on the opening act was Niles Rogers and Chic.
Okay.
He got there for like 45 minutes. They played about 22-minute songs. And I realized he wrote or produced every single one of these songs. Like Sledge.
Right.
And Good Time.
Yeah, he was during that late 80s and even late 70s and even early 80s period. He was a hit machine. He was writing and producing for everybody. in addition to the stuff that his own band Chic was doing. So he was all over the place.
And so the connection we talked about before is the drummer Tony Thompson,
right,
was his drummer, and then somehow Duran Duran was big fans of that band. The bass player for Duran Duran was Andy Taylor. There's 3 Taylors. He modeled his bass playing after the bass player of Chic, which I saw. That guy is, man, really good. And then I showed Steve and you that there was a period of time when Led Zeppelin considered using Tony Thompson as a replacement for John Bonham, which is just blowing.
And Tony Thompson was the drummer from Chic.
Yeah, he was a big hitter like Bonham, So it was like there's other guys who do, like Charlie Watts, great drummer, but he's like a machine. He perfectly keeps time. But anyway, so let's go back. That was all I wanted to ramble. That was my end of my ramble.
Okay, but listen. Oh, Steve, go ahead.
I got one interjection.
Go ahead.
I did see Ringo Starr in his all-star band, and that was one of the greatest concerts I've ever seen. Ringo was in top shape, and there's a couple of things that I learned that I probably wasn't aware about. Steve Lukather, I think I'm pronouncing his name right. So the guitar player from Toto. I know you guys have talked about him before.
Yeah.
That guy is a virtuoso, and he's probably one of the top 10 greatest guitar players I've ever seen. And when they introduced, Ringo did his opening act, and then he introduced the band's band members, and he referenced Steve Lukather and said, this is one of the greatest guitar players of all time. And by the end of the night, well, actually about 2 songs into it, I was like, yeah, he's not kidding. This guy, he's played on over 2,500 tracks as a session player. So all around great concert. And a couple of the guys from that concert actually have songs from the 1971, and we'll get to it, including Ringo. So
okay, good.
For those of you, if you watch this, it's a great show. Go out and see it. I highly recommend it, and you won't be disappointed.
Okay, excellent. Okay, have you guys had a chance to look over any of the 1971 material?
No.
Okay. All right, well, just for the record, the classic rock list that we are referencing is one that I downloaded a number of years ago from a website that called itself Classic Rock 2000. And this person or persons had put together, I must say painstakingly, a list of 2,000 songs between the years of 1963 and the year, I think it ran through 1999. I don't think it actually went into 2000. Oh, it did, because it had It's a Beautiful Day by U2, but not much into 2000. But he had 2,000 songs, and he listed them chronologically. So it's very interesting to go back and sort of follow along the chronology of these songs. So that's what when we talk about 1971 songs, that's what we're referencing here. Most of these, at least more than half, I'm certain, I have heard on classic rock radio. There are a handful that I look at and I go, I don't think I ever heard that on any classic rock stations before, but still, some of them are still worth mentioning. So anybody want to start off?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, then I'll just start with this, okay? I'm just going to do a quick overview of some of the artists that really stand out as big contributors in the calendar year 1971. Okay, we've got Alice Cooper, we've got Black Sabbath, we've got Elton John. It's pretty much his first year, at least as far as being significant. Janis Joplin had several choices, Jethro Tull, a few by John Lennon, a bunch by Led Zeppelin. Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr both made contributions, a bunch of songs by Rod Stewart and the Rolling Stones, 3 by Santana, 4 by The Doors, 3 songs by Traffic, 2 by Van Morrison, and a whole bunch by The Who. All right. So, thoughts? Anything that guys have favorites or the opposite of? Go ahead. Steve, you weren't born then, so your thoughts are sort of going to perhaps make me and Paul go, all right, so go ahead.
Well, I think the greatest, we're getting a little bit of feedback, so somebody may have to go on mute here. Now, this is not my personal favorite album, although it's a great album, but I think the greatest rock album of all time was released in 1971. So that would be Led Zeppelin IV, Zoso, or however you want to call it.
Right.
Rooms. Yeah. So I think it hands down, not a bad track on it, no filler.
For those who don't recognize that name, Led Zeppelin IV, it's the one with Stairway to Heaven, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
The
right.
fourth song on Led
Right.
Zeppelin IV.
Right. Right.
Don't do it.
Which is
Don't
not
do it.
Kashmir.
Right. Right.
Don't do it.
Okay,
So
well,
that's
listen.
to me the biggest thing that stands out. I mean, I can go on and on, but I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Well, here's what I'm going to add to that, because I certainly won't argue that that's the greatest rock album of all time, and you know, opinions are all over the place on that one. But I mentioned a lot of contribution from the Who, and I'm pretty sure that these songs, there's 6, these are all from Who's Next, which I got to tell you, to me, is one of the possibly top 10 or even top 5 rock albums of all time. My God, Bargain, Behind Blue Eyes, Going Mobile, The Song Is Over, Won't Get Fooled Again. I mean,
yeah,
those are classic rock staples, and they're songs I never get tired of when I hear them. I mean, just great songs.
Yeah, Behind Blue Eyes might be my favorite track from the Who.
I'm kind of going to agree with that too.
For the first, I don't know, probably when in the 90s when I first heard it the first few times, I didn't like it, and I didn't realize it was the Who. I turned it off after kind of the first I don't know, first few measures, but it just started growing on me. But
yeah,
I love it. It's probably their best song to me.
The Who, and I think probably other really good rock bands too, can do a ballad and not turn it into a Barry Manilow song. You know what I mean?
Or an 80s ballad crap garbage.
Right. Right. Don't get started.
Yeah. Well, get me going.
Okay.
I totally
I'll
agree.
Be There For You by Bon Jovi.
Right. Right. All right. So let's just start back. I'm just going to sort of go alphabetically here. Alice Cooper had some really good songs here. Be My Lover, 18, Under My Wheels. What do you guys think about those?
I like those songs, but Alice, when I heard "Welcome to My Nightmare," I know it's like 3 or 4 years later. That's
right.
my album that I love. But
okay,
I'm a huge Alice Cooper fan. Plus, he had this element that no one else ever had, like these. Like on HBO, when I was a kid, he had the whole album of "Welcome to My Nightmare" on stage, and I was like a 10-year-old, probably. Cut this head off, put all this stuff with a guillotine. I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, go ahead.
I'm 18. Not only was it a great rock song, but of course the youth of the culture embraced it because it's like their anthem, you know. So I wasn't 18. I was probably 10 or 11, but man, it was a great song. Didn't get tired of it.
You will know. I'm trying to think. That was the magic year for being drafted to go to Vietnam. So,
you know what? You're right. You're right. Yeah.
So that was a big doggone deal. If I'm 17, 359 days, I can't be drafted. 2 more days, whatever, 6 more days later, I can go to Vietnam and get killed,
Right. All right. Steve?
I'm an Alice Cooper fan. I appreciate what he did. I'm more of a kind of a 90s Rob Zombie guy. So, which that's kind of his, that's what Alice Cooper morphed into. And they're actually on tour this year together. But yeah, I have an appreciation of it.
Okay, cool.
I did notice something in here. Like you have Black Sabbath is on the list.
Right.
Now those singles were probably released in 71, but it came off the Paranoid album, which was released, I think, in September of 1970. So
70. That happens a lot when you start looking at these lists, because sometimes they will differentiate between the year of the album and the year of the single. Other times they just group them all into one year. So sometimes it's some gray area there. We'll just do our best to navigate that.
Yeah.
And I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, but as far as classic rock radio goes, I think Iron Man and Paranoid are the only 2 of these that I ever hear.
Hold on now.
It's so hard because I don't listen to terrestrial radio that much, but I would say it's probably right. Maybe War Pigs, but I mean, it's pretty long for the radio, though.
There was a time years ago when I would have heard that, but I haven't heard that on the radio in years.
Oh no!
To this day, I do still hear Paranoid and Iron Man, though. I do.
Fairies Wear Boots is on that album, right, Steve?
Correct.
It is.
Yeah.
I hear that on Sirius XM all the time.
Of course, we got glass there.
But that is, again, that's probably, if it had released in 1971, I would say it's the second greatest album released in 1971. But after
Okay.
Are we going down? We're still going in alphabetical order, right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to. It just
'Cause
seems like an easy thing to do.
There is a band on here towards the bottom in the
Okay.
T that I want to make sure we get to.
Let's do them now. It's okay.
Okay. So it's a band called T-Rex,
Okay.
which if you ask almost every kind of rock musician kind of from the 80s onward, they're one of their biggest influences. They were
Absolutely.
big in Europe. I don't know if it was Germany or not Germany, but Great Britain. I'm not sure what country, but they're like, you know, in somewhere in Europe, they are like the equivalent of like Aerosmith. Really big and very influential. There's a couple of songs that that maybe I'll throw out at the end that were covers by some from some 90s artists, but like songs like Life's a Gas, Bang a Gong. I still hear those on classic rock radio, at least Bang a Gong every once in a while.
Oh, definitely. And that was remade by the Power Station, wasn't
Power
it?
Station, absolutely.
Yeah.
With Tony Thompson.
I love Robert Palmer. So.
Oh yeah. You know, I've always been fascinated by it can be a band or just any artist, but their radio career, their pop career is limited to one or two songs. However, you'll ask a list of 50 different artists, who are your biggest influences? And they all keep choosing this same guy. And you go, really? Because T-Rex for the longest time. I mean, the internet opened up a lot of doors, obviously, but for the longest time, I could only name one song by T-Rex, Bang a Gong. I could not name another. And it wasn't until the internet came along that I realized these guys have been recording albums year after year after year and have remained popular over in Great Britain, but just not in the States.
Yeah.
They did Buick McCain, right?
I don't know who did that, and I love that cover by the.
That's been covered by Guns N' Roses, Danzig. I mean, I could probably, if I thought about it, I think it's been covered 8 or 9 times. Garden covered it.
I love the GNR. It probably is T-Rex because the two when you listen to like bands from the 80s and 90s, the two bands that you hear quote that they quote the most are T-Rex and Thin Lizzy as far as influences.
Wow. And the other one is Iggy Pop. You hear all these bands, Hot Chili Peppers, Guns N' Roses, they all cover Iggy. Rage Against the Machine covered Iggy. So but there's like Steve's right. There's like these 5-6 band, that like you said, Kenny. I never heard an Iggy Pop song on the radio except for maybe The Passenger.
Right.
Lust for Life.
Lust for Life. Yeah.
Real Wild One.
Yeah, Real Wild Child. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard any Stooges songs on the radio.
I've heard them once, and that that's on and that was on XM radio.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And Buick, I just looked up. Buick McCain was done by T-Rex.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But yeah, no, Iggy, hardly any songs, but you're right, Paul. He's named by so many different artists.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. Okay. No, Steve, those T-Rex, a good call out there. Let me say this really quick. Some of these early songs by Santana, Everybody's Everything, Everything's Coming Our Way, No One to Depend On, those are not my favorite songs. He's a great guitarist. I'm not debating that. But those songs for me haven't aged well. I hear them and I go,
I'm not rushing out. I mean, I like Santana. I'm the same way with you. I'm really glad that he resurrected his career.
Yeah.
He's kind of a little bit of a jerk. Okay.
He takes the wrong side of social issues. I can tell you that much.
Right.
We're not getting into that, but he does.
Steve and I know someone who knows him a little bit. Steve may not even be aware of that, but I don't
know who you're talking about.
You will. So we arranged to have something sent to his house in Hawaii so he could watch, because he's in this show called The Mighty Boosh. The British comedy. They mentioned him throughout the whole episode. So I made sure that DVD got to his house, and I don't think he ever watched it. I'm like, dude, you're in the whole episode. It's about you. But anyway, it's kind of a jerk.
He probably gets a lot of mail. I mean,
the the number one comedy show on earth is talking about you. Need to watch it.
Okay, I'm going to bounce back up towards the top of the list because this is one that I think is at least worth mentioning. I don't think I've ever heard this on a classic rock station. However, back in the 70s, rock stations did play this song, Brewer and Shipley, One Toke Over the Line. You guys remember that song?
Sing it for us, Kenny.
No. Come on. Oh my God. Yeah, you don't want me to do that. It's
I like it.
Yeah, I like the song. No, I like the song. Don't get me wrong, but it was a product of its time because, yeah, it's about smoking pot. And I mean, we mentioned the song by Charlie Daniels called "The Ballad of Uneasy Rider," right? In that song, he's the protagonist and he's a pothead. He is. This song is about smoking pot. So in the early 70s there, 71 or whatever, that would have been something that the hippie culture, whatever, would have embraced and grabbed onto, but it was never really a rock song. So I would be really surprised if I were to hear that nowadays on a classic rock station. Maybe somebody has, I don't think I have, but it was still an interesting choice for him to put on the list there.
I hear that on kind of the outlaw country station on Sirius XM. So.
Oh, okay. All right. All right, and then that's going to bring us next to another odd choice, even though I think in the early 70s this probably got play, and that would be Cat Stevens, Peace Train and Wild World. Two songs that we've all heard a million times, but not on classic rock stations.
I think you hear Wild World.
Oh, I've heard it on classic rock.
General comment. I'm not sure we're calling him by his correct name now.
Right.
Steve trying to be funny now.
Right now, he's right though. He's accurate. Yusuf.
Islam,
Joe. I call him Joe. You know, I would say Wild World though is you hear that on classic rock stations occasionally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Peace Train. I like the songs. I don't hear them that much on classic rock. Actually, I would say Wild World is probably, where I first heard that was from Mr. Big.
Oh, okay. Because there was a 90s reggae version of Wild World that was very popular. And I think more people know that one than they do the Cat Stevens.
They do. Yeah. I remember sitting in a car outside the Richfield Coliseum going to a Cleveland Cavaliers game in like 1990 and hearing the Mr. Big version on the radio. And were
you one toke over the line?
No.
Joking.
I don't do that, and I was also 13 with my dad. So.
Oh, okay. Well, there's that. All right. Well, anyway, Brewer and Shipley, Cat Stevens, a couple of songs that I thought we should just throw out there. Let's jump ahead to. Let's just go ahead and go to Elton John because we've got Burn Down the Mission.
No.
Elton John. We've got Burn Down the Mission, Leave On, Madman Across the Water, and Tiny Dancer. 4 pretty darn good songs.
Yeah, I didn't realize that came out. Tiny Dancer was that old. What year did Daniel come out? Before that?
That's what
afterwards. Daniel came out in 73 because it was from Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player.
Yeah, that Daniel is my favorite Elton John song. I like actually, this is funny, but I'm actually a big fan of his 80s stuff and not as much of his work in the 70s.
Oh, really?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay. Amongst the population of Elton John fans, you are in a minority, but
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because he didn't grow up hearing it like we did. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Like
Correct. In fact, the 80s is what he grew up on. So naturally, he's...
I did like the song with Kiki D, though. The duet.
Go breaking my heart.
Yeah, and I can understand why people hate it. Like,
it's not my favorite.
I like that song actually. I'm a sucker for melody. I'm a sucker. If it's got a melody, I get.
Okay, one thing is undeniable about Elton John, and that was that guy could write a catchy song. Sometimes catchy in a way that you can't get it out of your head, even if you want to. But he could write a catchy song, and the one with Kiki D was catchy, and went to #1 on the charts. So we won't spend too much time and effort beating up on it. David Bowie, Changes, pretty good song.
Oh,
it's okay. I love Ziggy Stardust.
Okay.
And Space Oddity, but yeah, that's not my favorite. It's okay.
It's so hard to be someone like he was because he's trying to change things, but you can't go too far because you lose your audience; they won't buy it. But if you just say vanilla crap as everybody else is playing, then you're like, but he's like trying to move the ship a little bit at a time,
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
Really songs.
I'm a fan. I'm a big fan. Okay, so let's scroll on a little further. What about this song, "Hocus Pocus" by Focus? You guys know that, right?
Oh yeah. All instrumental, except some yodeling.
Except for the yodeling, exactly.
Yeah.
That was in. Oh, we talked about that was in Tropic Thunder, right?
Oh, was it?
Was it? I don't remember that.
Or is that Frankenstein? Maybe I'm getting that confused.
It's been too long since I saw
year. It. Or Frankenstein was 70 then.
I'm not sure.
Which they actually, speaking of Frankenstein.
No, it is Frankenstein. I was wrong.
Well, going back to the Ringo Starr concert, Edgar Winter is in his all-star band, and they did play Frankenstein. So it was great cover.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, it was fantastic.
Wow, pretty cool.
We did skip over one song. I'm a big fan of the Faces.
Okay.
And so Stay With Me. I mean, if you like,
love that song.
Rock music, you gotta love Ronnie, because I think that's Ron Wood on that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Rod Stewart's in there too, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a singer.
Yeah.
Stay with me. He's a gravel. Yeah.
Yeah. And Faces also have a song called "Itchy Coo Park." For the longest time, I would hear that song and I liked it, and I had no idea what the name of it was. And I don't think I even found out maybe till YouTube or something like that. And I'm going, that's the name of that song? So that's a good song. And also the song in which it's called "Ooh La La La." Rod Stewart redid it in the 90s. And when he redid it, I didn't know that the Faces did it originally. But that's a really good song. I wish that I knew then what I know now, whatever. That's a good song.
I wish that I knew what I know what you're talking about.
There were some other guys in that band.
When I was younger.
Any love. I've forgotten the other guys in the band, the Faces. I have to look it up.
I should know the drummer. Their drummer was pretty solid in that band too.
Who was it? Was it?
I can't remember.
I'm not gonna guess because I'll make an ass out of myself. So I can't. I should know that actually. Kenny, don't say it. I threw Kenny a 3-2 fastball dead red, and he just.
Well, that's also I think Rod Stewart's on the list for Maggie May in 71 as well.
He had a bunch of songs down there. Yeah.
Maggie may not. So I don't know.
Oh God, he's gonna torture us. Okay, so I have to mention this one really quick. Where did it go? I just lost it.
Well, the James Gang Walkaway's in there.
No. Yeah. Which I think we mentioned last week. But what I was going to say is this, and I'm going to preface this with, this is one of my most despised songs of all time. And I'm not exaggerating. It really is. The song is "You've Got a Friend" by James Taylor.
Oh.
The only interesting thing I have to say about James Taylor is we went and saw him a couple of years ago, and the average age was probably 72. My wife wanted to go. I appreciate the music, whatever. But there was actually a fight that broke out.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah.
Over a wheelchair? Was it over a wheelchair?
The guy was probably about 75 years old, and the kid who he's fighting with was probably 25. And the 75-year-old was the instigator.
Wow.
It was on an amphitheater. I think they were fighting over one of the lawn seats or whatever. And the older guy pushed the guy. So he took a step back and tripped over somebody and fell down. It was the funniest damn thing I'd ever seen.
Wow. Well, I'm not a James Taylor hater. It's just that song has been so overplayed. And for me, it's so overrated to begin with. Do you guys remember a few years back when there was some sort of atrocity over in France, stadium bombing, or I don't remember specifically what it was, but James Taylor went over there and played "You've Got a Friend" for their parliament or whatever. And I'm like, going,
it may have been after one of the knife attacks
I think it was.
Or
Yeah.
one of the didn't the subway get bombed over or the train?
Yeah, there was also the thing where several guys with guns went into the newspaper building and shot up a bunch of the
Oh,
journalists.
that's Charlie Hebdo.
Correct. And it might have been that. It might have been that. But anyway, my point is James Taylor goes to France and sits on a stool and plays "You've Got a Friend" in front of their parliament or whatever they call their governing body. And I was just like, wow, I already hated that song. It just got a lot worse. It just got a lot worse.
I remember watching that
God.
and saying, can you just keep them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's America's gift to you is you can have James Taylor.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have been
All
fine.
right, so
okay, we got our warning. We got our warning. So
all right, so let's talk about Led Zeppelin. We're not going to do this show without talking about the greatest. I mean,
we already did.
No, we didn't say anything. We didn't mention one. We mentioned "Stairway to Heaven" and said that. Move on.
I said it's the greatest rock album of all time.
I know, but let's talk
Paul,
about.
Paul, go ahead. Give me some love. Go ahead.
I'm sick of hearing rock and roll, especially. I love that song, but we were in Cadillac. Remember, like 2015, they bought the rights to it and they played it. It was literally being played every 27 minutes on the national television. I got to the point where I don't want to hear rock and roll for the rest of my life.
Well, let's do this. Why don't we just name our favorite track from that album?
All right, go ahead, Steve.
I was hoping you go first. Well, okay.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
And it's one of my top three. It's Misty Mountain Hot. I can listen to that song all day long for the rest of my life. I love that song. And it's got so many things going on. It's talking about, they're being, where are they, San Francisco, and the cops come up, and then they switches from that. Why don't you take a good look in the mirror and describe what you see, and baby, 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 do you like it? It's a pretty profound song. And the drum beat's very unique and everything.
Yeah, and they talk about Lord of the Rings and.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll say mine. The Battle of Evermore.
Great song.
Okay, I was going to pick that one. So it's just to be, because I'm not going to pick "Stairway to Heaven," because as much as I love this song, it's been so overplayed that I don't need to ever hear it again. So I was going to pick "The Battle of Evermore." I'm not going to choose "Black Dog." I'll go with "When the Levee Breaks." Great song.
A great thing about Battle of Evermore, I'm going to throw out a softball. What great band covered that song and equaled the Led Zeppelin version?
Nobody, because there is no equal to that song.
Heart
other
did
than
it, and
Page
they
of
are.
Plant. The
Heart
Page of
did
Plant.
Heart did it, and it's equal to the original. I'm just telling you.
Okay.
Ann Wilson is that woman. They just, I don't know what it is. They're big Zeppelin fans anyway.
Yeah,
They are. And Heart, before they became 80s pop rockers, they were serious rockers in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
They really were. Yeah.
If looks could kill. Oh, sorry.
Okay, we are now moving into the phase where we make nominations to our ever-growing classic rock list. I'm going to go first to give you guys a few extra minutes. Your choice for tonight does not have to be from 1971. I'm going to do it just for the sake of this. And because we mentioned earlier in the show, David Bowie, I love the song "Life on Mars." It's not a rocker, but it's just a great song. And I had totally forgotten about that song. And a few years ago, there was a TV show, I think it was on HBO actually, called Vinyl. Did you guys ever hear of it?
Oh, yeah, great
It
show.
only ran for one season.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. But apparently the budget was so enormous that it wasn't making enough to finance it. So they ended it. One of the best shows I've ever seen. And they played "Life on Mars." And I went, oh my God, I forgot all about that song. It's one of my favorites, one of my favorite Bowie songs, one of my favorite songs, period. It's from 1971. So there's my nomination.
Go ahead, Steve.
I'll do two real quick because we left off the Doors, "L.A. Woman," which might be my favorite Doors song.
Okay.
All time, pretty heavy. And then just as a nomination, we talked about T-Rex. So check out Gilby Clarke, who was in Guns N' Roses. He replaced Izzy. He covered "Life's a Gas" and released it as like the B-side to one of his a single back in the 90s. And I think we also left off, he also covered "Dead Flowers" by the Rolling Stones as well, which is one of my favorite Stones tracks. And I think that song was released in 71 as well.
Okay.
It's off "Sticky Fingers," which I think came out technically in 70. So,
All right.
I challenge everybody to go back and see the original Buick McCain by T-Rex, because now I'm not sure if I know what it is, because Soundgarden, Guns N' Roses, Danzig, or something else, and they're all, because they get to the line of I'm gonna blank you blank, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like now I gotta go back. Did he say that word on the album? I can't remember. I don't think I ever owned a T-Rex. Did you guys ever own one? I mean, Kenny probably did.
No,
I think he said "rar."
Rar you? I'm gonna rar you.
Yeah.
Okay.
T-Rex.
Ah, that was good.
No, it wasn't.
I'm about to disown both of you. Okay, guys.
That was good, Steve.
Any final thoughts on 1971?
Did the Rolling Stones have an album coming out that year?
Well, they must have, because there was a bunch of Stone songs. We just sort of skipped over them, but I mean, there's just too much material. Bitch, Brown Sugar, Can You Hear Me Knocking, Sister Morphine, Wild Horses. Yeah, there was just too much. There was too much good music to talk about it all in 30 minutes. But
okay, so I went to Russia in 2000. My guide said to me, "Paul, we're going to go to the museum near Neva River, St. Petersburg, and there's a museum about the guy. His name is, I probably haven't heard of him. His name is Pavlov." I started laughing. Pavlov? Are you kidding me? Oh no, Americans do not know who he is. I said, yes, we do. I said, matter of fact, the Rolling Stones wrote a song about Pavlov. She goes, no, they didn't. Yes, they did. It's called Bitch. And she's like, huh? I said, go. I made her. She's like, oh my God, I never knew this was in the song. Yeah, the Rolling Stones. I mean, every American knows that song. Is make me salivate like Pavlov's dog when your heart, my heart
Right.
is strong. And that's when he hits the tom-tom. Anyway,
Right.
so we all know who Pavlov is.
there you go. Okay, guys, for this week, that's going to be a wrap. Lots of good 1971 classic rock. Next time we can do 1972 or something else. We'll figure it out. In the meantime, thanks for watching. If you happen to be watching right now, please like, comment, and subscribe. This is the Great Classic Rock Debate. I'm Kenny.
Paul.
I'm Steve.
And we will see you next time.